Hi folks, this is Richard Doyle here with BeLeanForLifeCoach.com, and today we're going to make a bone broth recipe. Okay then, let's get into making some bone broth. First of all, let's go through the ingredients. Right here I've got 6 pounds of beef bones. Now I like to use grass-fed pastured beef for this recipe. These are not actually grass-fed. I wasn't able to get any this time around. They're not the easiest thing to come by, but normally that's what I try to do. So we're going to have a bag of baby carrots and 2 pretty good sized onions. I'm going to cut up some of this celery, and then these are the other main ingredients. We got some basil leaves, we got some oregano, sage, pepper, salt, bay leaves, oregano, and then we've got black pepper, and then we've got garlic salt actually. So, and over here, this is what I'm going to make the broth in. This is a fairly large container. I'll show you the way it's put together here. It has this kind of basket that goes inside, and right here, this is a container that holds about 10 quarts. So like 2.5 gallons of liquid. We won't actually get that much liquid in this recipe, of course, because the bones and the other components are going to take up quite a bit of the volume here. But that's the vessel we're going to use to build this. All right then. So let's put those aside for a moment. And first of all, let's put the bones into the pan here. Now I'm going to bake these bones at 400 degrees in the oven, and I'm going to bake them for about 40 to 50 minutes. What happens when we're baking these, of course, is that the marrow sort of renders down, a lot of the fat comes out, and that's when they're ready to go in the pot here to get the process going. So there's the bones. Now I'm going to add the onion. I've got 2 fairly large onions here, and I'm just cutting them up. Nothing special here, cutting them into a number of pieces, and we're just going to throw them on top. Basically they're going to bake out here with the bones. By doing this, it gives them the broth more flavour, I believe, and it also gives it more colour, because browning these onions definitely affects the colour of the finished product. So let's throw those in. Then we're going to put some carrots in. I got a bag here, looks like a pound of baby carrots, so we'll just throw them in too. Alright, mix them all up. And then we're going to put some celery in here. So I'm just going to cut up some celery. I don't know how much exactly, but that much, however that much is. So we'll throw those on there. So there's all the primary ingredients for the broth. Now we're going to put some little bit of pepper on there. Always put some seasoning on, and then a little bit of pink salt, and there we are. That is now going to go into the oven at 400 degrees for about 40 to 50 minutes, and then we'll return and go to the next step. Okay then, here we are again about 50 minutes later, and this is the bones that I've just taken out of the oven. We had it on 400 degrees for about 50 minutes, and so they've all rendered down nicely now. So let's go about making the broth. Okay, I've got my container in here. This is going to keep all the pieces out of the broth, so when I get done I'll just be able to lift this out and it's basically clear. So let's add this to the water here. I've got a little bit of water in here. I haven't filled it up obviously because these bones and other pieces here are going to take up quite a bit of the space, so we don't want to overflow. So we'll just go ahead and put all this in here. As you can see, these bones have rendered down pretty well. The center part here, the marrow is coming along nicely. There's actually quite a lot of fat that has come out of these bones and is in this pan. Of course, we'll pour that in as well because we're happy to have plenty of saturated fat in our broth. So there we go. We've got all the bones there now. As I say, there's 6 pounds of bones. It's quite a lot. Costs in the range of say $12 to $16 depending on your source. So while it does cost a little bit to make this product, it is considerably cheaper than what you would buy in a store, especially if you're going with grass-fed, pastured animals. So we're just going to put the vegetables in here. Everything's going in because it all adds to the flavour. You can see the onions have gone a little bit brown, the carrots have softened up, and we've got the celery browned up as well. So everything's looking good. As you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff going in there. So while that looks like a large container, of course we're not going to get that full container worth of broth at the end of the day. Once I've finished this product and we've had it cook in here for a while, I'll come back with, and you'll see how much broth I actually got. So there we go, that's the all the vegetables and the bones there. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and add some additional flavorings, if you will. So let's start with the basil, as we say here in America. I don't really go measure this too much. I'd say that one is about half a tablespoon. Oops. And we'll put a few bay leaves in here. What have we got there? Oh, 2. Now let's go for a couple more. So 3, 4 bay leaves. Okay. Then we'll go for some oregano. I think we can probably go with a tablespoon of that or thereabouts. And we've got sage. Now sage is fairly pungent, so we're not going to put quite so much sage in there as I have the other things, so maybe half a tablespoon. Okay, apple cider vinegar. I really like to put some of this in here. Now, how much? Well, about that much. Probably half a cup, maybe a little more. Then let's put some peppercorn in here, or some black pepper, ground black pepper I should say. We'll go with a tablespoon of that. That gives it a sort of a warm taste, if you will, when it's completed. And here we have the garlic salt. So we're going to put about a tablespoon of that in there as well. So there we go. There's all the ingredients. We're going to put them in there. We've got that all stirred up so that it starts to work together there. And then all we're going to do now is we're going to fill this up with more water. Not quite enough there, but when I'm done here, I'm going to fill it up to here. As you can see, there's a joint around here, and if I fill it above that when it's cooking, it tends to spray out. So we're basically going to fill it up to here. So I'm thinking the bones probably come up to about here, and then the rest is the water, which will of course form the broth. So we're going to put this on the stove, and I'm going to get it to boil. And once it's boiled, I'm going to turn it all the way down to a simmer, which is pretty much the lowest heat I can get it on. And then you'll just see bubbles popping every now and again, so it's very, very low. And then I cook that for 48 hours. Now, 48 hours might seem like a long time, but it's what it takes to get all the flavor and everything out of the bones and the vegetables and all the herbs and spices and so on. So there it is. We're going to put this on for 48 hours on the simmer level, if you will, and I'll be back in a couple of days and I'll show you the end result. Okay then, 48 hours have passed since we left this on the stove. It's been cooking for a couple of days, and now we're going to finally get the broth out and put it in the bottles there. First of all, I'm just going to let that drain a little bit. We have all the bones and the other vegetables and things that are left in here. You can see this is a pretty good piece of equipment for doing this, because rather than having to strain anything here, we've got all of the bits we don't need held in this basket, so we basically don't have any straining to do, so that saves a lot of time. Okay then, so that is the bones and everything out. Get them out of the way. So all that remains now is to fill these bottles here with the broth. I basically fill these up and then I let them cool down, and then I keep them in the fridge, because this is really only about 3 weeks supply of broth for me, so I don't bother to put it in the freezer. If I know I'm going to be away for a while, then I will go ahead and put them in the broth in freezer bags and actually put them in the freezer. So let's go ahead here and start to fill these bottles up. As you can see, it's a nice dark colour. Going to be a pretty intense broth. So that's good. This is a little messy process here, but got to do what you got to do, right? Let's add a little more of that in there. That's probably enough for that one. I think that's 2 quarts actually, so that's a pretty good amount. So now we're just going to fill up the rest of these. So then, there we are. There's the broth. As you can see, it's a pretty good colour. It's quite dense. I'm sure that's going to taste great. I got about 20 pints there, so that's kind of maybe 3 weeks of broth for me, because I drink it every day. So that's basically what we got out of the mix, and I'm going to let that cool down first of all, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and drink it over the next 3 weeks or so. So I hope you enjoyed that recipe, and we'll talk again soon.